No hate here, only passion and drama of the game. This story will keep you on the edge of your seat, made just for you. Drop where you're watching from in the comments, hit like, and subscribe for the twist. The cab door slammed shut with a sharp click, sealing out the icy rain, but not the disgust in the white man's voice. Find another ride. He snapped at the black man still standing on the curb, one hand outstretched toward the handle. The driver hesitated, eyes flicking between them in the rearview mirror, but the passenger's glare was a command. I said go. The black man's jaw tightened, fingers curling into a fist at his side. For a heartbeat, the air between them crackled with something dangerous. Then headlights cut through the downpour. A speeding truck, swerving wildly. Metal screamed. Glass shattered. And suddenly, the man who had refused to share a cab was pinned in the wreckage, blood streaking his face, staring into the eyes of the one he'd just turned away. The cab's mangled frame groaned under the weight of the collision, the stench of gasoline sharp in the damp air. The white man gasped, pain lancing through his ribs as he tried to move. The door above him was bent inward, trapping his legs. Panic clawed up his throat, until a shadow blocked the fractured streetlight. The black man crouched beside the wreck, his expression unreadable. Blood dripped from a cut on his temple, mixing with the rain. You? The trapped man choked out. His pulse pounded in his ears, louder than the distant wail of sirens. A spark hissed near the cab's ruptured fuel line. The black man's gaze flicked to it, then back to him. No words. Just a split second of silence that stretched like a wire about to snap. Then he reached in. The white man flinched. Instinct, shame, terror, he didn't know. But the hands gripping his shoulders were steady, pulling him free just as the first flame licked at the upholstery. He collapsed onto the pavement, coughing, his savior's grip the only thing keeping him from face-planting into the asphalt. Why, he rasped. The black man didn't answer, just hauled him further from the wreck, his own breath ragged. Up close, the white man could see the frayed edge of his sleeve, the wedding band on his finger. A normal man, a man he'd dismissed without a thought. Then headlights swung around the corner, too fast. The black man's head snapped up, his grip tightened, and the white man realized, with a jolt colder than the rain, that this wasn't over. The black man's grip on the white man's arm tightened as the approaching headlights grew brighter, their glare cutting through the rain like twin blades. The white man, his name was Daniel, though it felt strange to think of himself as anything but the man in the wreck now, tried to push himself up, but his legs buckled under him. Pain shot through his ribs, sharp and unforgiving. Stay down. The black man, Marcus, though Daniel didn't know that yet, said, his voice low but edged with urgency. The truck that had hit them was still idling a few yards away, its front end crumpled like paper. The driver's door hung open, but the cab was empty. Whoever had been behind the wheel was gone. And now another vehicle was coming. Daniel's breath came in ragged bursts. He could smell gasoline, the acrid tang of it mixing with the metallic scent of his own blood. His vision swam, but he forced himself to focus. The street was poorly lit, the flickering glow of a broken lamppost casting long, jagged shadows. The rain had eased slightly, but the pavement still shimmered under the dim light. Marcus crouched beside him, his dark eyes scanning the street. His clothes were soaked, his sleeves torn where he'd forced his way through the wreckage. There was a gash on his forehead, blood trickling down the side of his face, but he didn't seem to notice. Who the hell was that? Daniel wheezed, nodding toward the abandoned truck. Marcus didn't answer. His attention was fixed on the approaching headlights. The engine's growl deepened as the vehicle slowed, its tires hissing against the wet pavement. Then it stopped. The door opened. A man stepped out, tall, broad-shouldered, his face obscured by the hood of his jacket. He moved with deliberate slowness, his boots splashing through the puddles as he approached. Daniel's pulse spiked. Something about the way the man walked set off alarms in his head. This wasn't help. This wasn't the police. Marcus shifted slightly, his body tensing. "You all right over there?" the stranger called, his voice too calm, too measured. Daniel opened his mouth to respond, but Marcus cut in. "We're fine. Help's already on the way." The man chuckled, low and humorless. "Yeah? That's funny. Didn't hear any sirens." He took another step forward, and the streetlight caught the glint of something in his hand. A gun. Daniel's stomach dropped. Marcus saw it too. His jaw clenched, but he didn't move. "Look," Daniel said, forcing his voice steady. "We don't want any trouble. Just leave us alone." The man tilted his head. "See, that's the thing. Trouble's already here." A beat of silence. The rain pattered against the pavement. Then, from somewhere down the street, a siren wailed, distant but unmistakable. The man's grip on the gun tightened. His gaze flicked toward the sound, then back to them. Marcus moved first. He lunged, knocking Daniel sideways just as the gun went off. The shot echoed off the buildings, deafening in the narrow street. Daniel hit the ground hard, pain exploding through his shoulder. Marcus was on his feet in an instant, his body a shield between Daniel and the gunman. "Run," he hissed. Daniel tried to push himself up, but his legs wouldn't cooperate. His breath came in short, panicked gasps. The gunman fired again. Marcus staggered but didn't fall. He grabbed a chunk of broken taillight from the wreckage and hurled it. It struck the man's shoulder, throwing off his aim as the third shot went wide. The sirens were closer now. The gunman hesitated, then swore under his breath. He took a step back, then another, before turning and sprinting toward the waiting car. The engine roared to life. Tires screeched. And just like that, he was gone. Daniel collapsed back onto the pavement, his chest heaving. His vision blurred at the edges, darkness creeping in. Marcus dropped to one knee beside him, his breathing ragged. "Stay with me," he muttered, pressing a hand to Daniel's shoulder where blood seeped through his shirt. Daniel blinked up at him, his thoughts sluggish. "Why?" he whispered again. Marcus didn't answer. His gaze was fixed on the street where the car had disappeared, his expression unreadable. The sirens grew louder. But Daniel had the sinking feeling that whatever had just happened, whatever was happening, was far from over. And the man who had saved his life knew more than he was saying. The first police cruiser skidded to a halt, its red and blue lights painting the wreckage in pulsing flashes. Daniel squinted against the glare, his vision swimming as an officer rushed toward them, shouting into his radio. 2 GSW victims, possible hit and run, suspect fled westbound in a dark sedan. Marcus stepped back from Daniel, his hands raised slightly as if to show he wasn't a threat. Blood dripped from his temple onto his collar, but his voice was steady. "He needs an ambulance." "Now." Daniel tried to speak, but a cough racked his chest, the coppery taste of blood filling his mouth. The officer's face blurred above him, replaced by the sterile white interior of the ambulance as paramedics loaded him onto a gurney. "Wait." Daniel grabbed weakly at Marcus's sleeve as they tried to wheel him away. "He's with me." The paramedics exchanged glances. Marcus's expression darkened, but he gave a curt nod and climbed in after them. The ambulance doors slammed shut, sealing them in with the whine of sirens and the too bright glow of overhead lights. Daniel's head throbbed with every bump in the road. Across from him, Marcus sat rigid, his gaze fixed on the floor. "Who was that back there?" Daniel rasped. Marcus's fingers tightened around the edge of the gurney. "You don't want to know." A monitor beeped erratically. The paramedic adjusted Daniel's her gloves smeared with his blood. "Try to relax, sir. You've lost a lot of blood." Daniel ignored her. "He shot at us." "Not just me, us." "What?" Marcus finally looked at him. His eyes were hard, unreadable. "Because some people don't like witnesses." The ambulance lurched around a corner. Daniel's stomach rolled. "Witnesses to what?" Marcus opened his mouth, then froze as the ambulance suddenly braked hard. Tires screeched outside. The paramedic stumbled, grabbing for support. What the hell? A deafening crunch of metal. The ambulance rocked violently, throwing Daniel against the straps of the gurney. Marcus slammed into the wall, his elbow cracking against the oxygen tank. Gunfire erupted outside. The paramedic screamed as bullets punched through the ambulance walls, one shattering the windshield. The driver slumped over the wheel, his blood spattering the dashboard. Marcus moved faster than Daniel could process. He yanked the paramedic down, shielding her with his body as another volley of shots tore through the compartment. "Get us out of here," Daniel shouted, fumbling for the release on his gurney straps. Marcus grabbed a scalpel from the med kit and sliced through the straps. "Back door now." They tumbled out into chaos. The ambulance had been forced off the road into a construction site. Its tires shot out. 2 black SUVs boxed them in, their headlights blinding. Shadows moved behind the glare, armed figures advancing. Marcus hauled Daniel behind a concrete barrier, just as another round of gunfire chewed up the pavement where they'd stood. You're going to tell me what's going on, Daniel snarled, his fear sharpening into anger. Or I swear to God. Or what? Marcus snapped. You'll refuse to share a cab with me again? The words hung between them, ugly and true. Daniel flinched. A bullet ricocheted off the barrier, spraying chips of concrete. Marcus peered around the edge, then ducked back. 3 shooters. They're flanking us. The paramedic whimpered, her hands pressed to her ears. Daniel's shoulder burned where the bullet had grazed him, but the adrenaline kept the pain at bay. Why are they after you? He demanded. Marcus's laugh was hollow. Not me. You. Daniel stared at him. That's impossible. I'm nobody. Then he remembered. The briefcase. Back at the cab, before the crash, he'd been clutching his work briefcase, the one his boss had handed him that morning with a too-tight smile. Don't open it. Just deliver it to the address inside. The briefcase was gone now, lost in the wreck. Or taken. Marcus saw the realization dawn on Daniel's face. Finally catching on. Another spray of gunfire. Closer this time. What was in it? Daniel whispered. Marcus didn't answer. Instead, he grabbed Daniel's wrist and pressed a scalpel into his palm. When I say run, you head for that alley. Don't stop. What about you? Marcus's smile didn't reach his eyes. I'll be right behind you. A grenade clattered onto the pavement between the SUVs. Daniel barely had time to register the click of the pin releasing before Marcus tackled him to the ground. The explosion shattered the night. The concussive force of the explosion slammed Daniel's body against the pavement, his ears ringing like church bells in an empty cathedral. Smoke and debris swirled in the air, stinging his eyes as he gasped for breath. Marcus's weight pressed down on him, a protective human shield that had taken the brunt of the blast. Move, Marcus growled, rolling off Daniel and dragging him up by his collar. The world tilted drunkenly as Daniel struggled to find his footing. His vision swam with afterimages of the explosion, the once dark construction site now illuminated by the burning husk of an SUV. Through the smoke, figures emerged, not the original gunmen, but new silhouettes in tactical gear. Their movements were precise, military. One gestured sharply with gloved hands, sending 2 others fanning out while the leader approached cautiously, rifle raised. Marcus shoved Daniel behind a pile of rebar and concrete sacks. Don't say a word. His whisper was barely audible over the crackling flames. The lead tactical officer knelt by one of the original attackers, now a charred corpse, and flipped the body over with clinical detachment. A quick pat-down produced a wallet, which he examined under the glow of a penlight. Company men, Marcus muttered, his breath coming in short, controlled bursts. Just what we needed. Daniel's hands trembled against the rough concrete. Who the hell are you? He hissed. And why does everyone suddenly want me dead? Before Marcus could answer, the tactical leader's radio crackled to life. Bravo team, report. The voice was distorted but carried an unmistakable tone of authority. 2 survivors unaccounted for. The leader responded, still scanning the wreckage. Possible hostiles in vicinity. Requesting perimeter lockdown. A chill ran down Daniel's spine. The way the man said survivors made it sound like a problem to be corrected. He pressed further into the shadows, his shoulder wound throbbing in time with his heartbeat. Marcus's fingers closed around a length of broken pipe. His eyes never left the tactical team as they methodically swept the area. When I move, he whispered, you run for that scaffolding. Don't look back. Daniel opened his mouth to protest, but a sudden noise froze them both, the distinctive click of a safety being disengaged directly behind them. Hands where I can see them. The voice was female, calm, and utterly devoid of mercy. Slowly, Marcus's shoulders tensed, but he complied, letting the pipe clatter to the ground. Daniel raised shaking hands, his breath coming in shallow gasps. The woman stepped into view, late 30s, dark hair pulled into a tight bun, eyes that missed nothing. Her pistol never wavered as she assessed them with a single sweeping glance. Well, she said, her lips curling into something that wasn't quite a smile. You 2 have been busy. Marcus's jaw worked silently. Daniel could see the calculations running behind his eyes, weighing options, measuring distances. Don't, the woman warned, as if reading his thoughts. We're not your enemies, but we will be if you make us. A shout came from the tactical team. They'd spotted the trio. The woman didn't flinch, merely sighed and reached into her jacket with her free hand. Daniel tensed, expecting another weapon, but instead she produced a small black device. Eyes closed, she commanded, and before either man could react, she activated it. The world dissolved into searing white light and a high-pitched whine that seemed to drill directly into Daniel's skull. He stumbled blindly, hands clutching at his face. Strong fingers closed around his wrist, dragging him forward. "Move your feet, or lose them," the woman barked, her grip like iron. They crashed through debris, the sounds of shouting and confusion fading behind them. Daniel's shoulder slammed into a metal beam, sending fresh waves of pain radiating down his arm. Somewhere to his left, Marcus was cursing steadily under his breath. The woman led them through a maze of construction materials, finally shoving them into a narrow gap between two concrete barriers. Daniel collapsed to his knees, his vision slowly returning in blurry patches. "Who?" he gasped. "Who the hell are you people?" The woman ignored him, speaking rapidly into a comm unit. "Package acquired. 2 for transport. Proceeding to secondary extraction." She fixed Marcus with a piercing stare. "You've made quite the mess, Mr. Cole." Marcus, Cole, apparently, wiped blood from his mouth. "Nice to see you too, Reyes. Thought you were still in Langley." Daniel's head snapped up. "Langley? As in CIA?" Reyes's smile was razor-thin. "Someone's been skipping their security briefings." She tossed Marcus a compact handgun, which he caught with practiced ease. "We have approximately 90 seconds before that TAC team regroups. Can you walk?" Daniel forced himself upright, leaning heavily against the barrier. "What about the paramedic? We can't just leave her dash." "Already extracted," Reyes cut in. "Unlike you two." She followed instructions. She peered around the barrier, then gestured sharply. "Now, single file. Cole, take rear guard." They moved like ghosts through the skeletal remains of the construction site, Reyes leading with silent precision. Every shadow seemed to hold new threats, every sound a potential enemy. Daniel's breath came in ragged gasps, his body pushed far beyond its limits. As they reached a chain-link fence, Reyes produced bolt cutters from somewhere on her person and made quick work of the lock. The metal links parted with a quiet screech that sounded deafening in the tense silence. Beyond the fence, a nondescript van waited, its engine idling. The side door slid open as they approached, revealing a dim interior. Marcus hesitated. "Since when does the agency use civilian transports?" "Since we went dark," Reyes said, her voice tight. "Get in. We have approximately 4 minutes before this neighborhood becomes very unhealthy." Daniel balked. "I'm not going anywhere until someone tells me what's happening." Reyes's patience snapped. She grabbed Daniel by his collar, her face inches from his. "Listen carefully, Mr. Whitmore. 3 hours ago, your company uploaded a quantum encryption key to an offshore server. 2 hours ago, 6 field operatives turned up dead in as many cities. 1 hour ago, you became the most wanted man in 3 intelligence agencies." She shoved him toward the van. "Now get in the goddamn vehicle." The revelation hit Daniel like a physical blow. Quantum encryption? His work at the tech firm had been mundane, financial software, nothing more. Unless Marcus was already moving, his weapon trained on the shadows behind them. She's right. That TAC team wasn't police. They were cleaners. A distant explosion rocked the night, sending a fireball twisting into the sky. The ambulance, Daniel realized with dawning horror. The van's driver leaned out. "Clock's ticking, people." Reyes gave Daniel one last shove. As he tumbled into the van, the pieces began falling into place. The briefcase, his boss's odd behavior, the sudden attack. None of it was random. And Marcus Cole, the man he'd refused to share a cab with, had known all along. The van door slammed shut, plunging them into darkness as the vehicle accelerated with a squeal of tires. Somewhere in the shadows, Daniel felt rather than saw Marcus take a seat across from him. "You should have taken another cab," Marcus said quietly. The words hung in the air as the van swerved onto the highway, carrying them toward an even greater danger than the one they'd left behind. The van's interior smelled of stale coffee and gun oil, the only light coming from the dim glow of dashboard instruments reflecting off the rearview mirror. Daniel's fingers dug into the worn upholstery as they took a sharp turn, his injured shoulder pressing painfully against the metal side panel. Across from him, Marcus sat perfectly still, his eyes tracking every bump in the road like he expected armed men to come bursting through the walls at any moment. Reyes pulled a black case from beneath the seat and popped it open, revealing a small arsenal of medical supplies. "Let me see that shoulder," she ordered, already tearing open an antiseptic wipe with her teeth. Daniel flinched as she peeled back his blood-soaked shirt. "What the hell is a quantum encryption key doing in my briefcase? I'm a logistics manager, not some spy." The van hit a pothole, making Reyes curse as she dabbed at the wound. "That's the question, isn't it?" She shot a glance at Marcus. "You didn't tell him?" Marcus's jaw tightened. Didn't have time between getting shot at. The van's radio crackled to life with a burst of static. The driver, a wiry man with a close-cropped beard, adjusted the frequency with one hand while keeping the other firmly on the wheel. "We've got company," he muttered. Two vehicles, half a click back and gaining. Reyes abandoned Daniel's shoulder and slid open a panel in the van's floor, pulling out 3 compact assault rifles. She tossed one to Marcus, who caught it midair and immediately began checking the magazine. Daniel's stomach dropped. "Wait, are we actually going to?" "Get down and stay down." Reyes cut him off, slamming a fresh magazine into her weapon with practiced ease. The metallic click sounded final, like a judge's gavel. Marcus leaned forward, his voice low. "Whitmore, listen carefully. Your boss, Edwin Cho, he's been running an off-book operation for the past 18 months. That briefcase you were delivering contained keys to backdoor access points in half the Fortune 500 companies." The revelation hit Daniel like a physical blow. Edwin, the same man who complained about his golf handicap every Monday morning? That's impossible. "We make inventory software." "Front company," Reyes said, peering through a small periscope mounted near the rear doors. "Those SUVs just split up. They're going to try boxing us in." The van accelerated sharply, throwing Daniel against Marcus. Outside, the city lights had given way to the darker stretches of industrial outskirts. Warehouses loomed like silent sentinels in the night. Marcus steadied Daniel with one hand while keeping his rifle ready with the other. Cho's been selling access to the highest bidder. Tonight was the handoff. You were the patsy. Daniel's mind reeled. All those late nights, all those special projects Edwin had asked him to handle. Had he been an unwitting mule this entire time? A sudden impact rocked the van from the side. Metal screamed as a black SUV rammed them, its tinted windows revealing nothing of the occupants. Reyes braced herself against the wall and returned fire, the deafening reports of her rifle filling the confined space. "Left side," the driver shouted, swerving violently. Another SUV pulled alongside, its passenger window rolling down to reveal the barrel of a shotgun. Marcus moved faster than Daniel could process. He kicked open the van's side door and fired 3 precise shots. The SUV swerved wildly, clipped a guardrail, and spun out in a shower of sparks. "Nice shooting," Reyes remarked, already reloading. Marcus didn't respond. His eyes were fixed on something in the distance. "We need to get off this road. Now." Following his gaze, Daniel saw it. A checkpoint ahead, floodlights illuminating concrete barriers and armed figures in tactical gear. Not police. Not anyone official. Companies called in reinforcements. The driver growled, downshifting violently. "Hang on." The van veered off the main road, plunging down a steep embankment toward the riverfront. Daniel's stomach lurched as they became airborne for one terrifying second before crashing back to earth with a bone-jarring impact. The headlights illuminated a maze of shipping containers stacked like giant metal dominoes. Reyes was already on her radio. Change of plans. Moving to alternate extraction point Delta. She turned to the driver. "How long?" 3 minutes to the docks, he responded, wrestling the wheel as they skidded around a corner. "If we live that long." Daniel realized his hands were shaking uncontrollably. The pain in his shoulder had faded beneath a wave of adrenaline, but the metallic taste of fear remained. "So what now?" "We just run forever." Marcus checked his weapon again, his movements precise. "Now we find Cho. He's the only one who can clear your name." Another impact, this time from behind. The rear doors buckled inward as the pursuing SUV rammed them again. Reyes braced herself and fired through the damaged metal, the muzzle flash illuminating her grim expression. The van careened through the container yard, weaving between the towering steel walls. Somewhere ahead, Daniel could hear the lapping of water against concrete. The docks. 30 seconds, the driver warned. "Brace for..." An explosion of gunfire erupted from above. Bullets punched through the van's roof as a figure appeared atop one of the shipping containers, weapon blazing. Marcus yanked Daniel down as rounds tore through the space where his head had been. Reyes returned fire, her shots ricocheting off the metal container with sharp pings. The van's windshield shattered. The driver grunted, his body jerking as blood bloomed across his shoulder. "I'm hit." Reyes didn't hesitate. She lunged forward, grabbing the wheel with one hand, while keeping her rifle trained out the broken window with the other. "Marcus, we need an exit." Marcus kicked open the side door again. The van was slowing, its engine laboring from the damage. Outside, the narrow passages between containers offered little cover but plenty of ambush points. "On my mark," Marcus said, his voice calm despite the chaos. "We make for that crane. Whitmore, stay between us." Daniel nodded, his mouth too dry to speak. The reality of his situation settled over him like a lead weight. He was a dead man walking unless he could find a way to prove his innocence. And right now, his only allies were a mysterious Black Ops soldier and a CIA agent who clearly thought he was more trouble than he was worth. The van skidded to a stop beside a towering gantry crane. Before the wheels had fully stopped turning, Marcus was moving, dragging Daniel out into the night. The smell of diesel and river water filled his nostrils as they sprinted for cover. Behind them, Reyes provided covering fire, her rifle barking sharp retorts that echoed off the metal containers. "Move. Go." Daniel's legs burned as he followed Marcus up a rusted metal staircase bolted to the side of a container stack. Below, he could hear shouts and the crunch of boots on gravel. Their pursuers weren't giving up. At the top of the stairs, Marcus paused just long enough to pull Daniel behind a stack of pallets. His breathing was steady, controlled. "Listen carefully. We're going to cross to that crane. From there, Reyes has a boat waiting." Daniel peered over the pallets. The crane loomed about 20 yards away, its control cabin dark. Between them and potential safety stretched an open expanse of dock, lit by sporadic floodlights. "A killing ground. You see that yellow container halfway across?" Marcus pointed. "When I say go, you run to it. Don't stop, don't look back." Daniel swallowed hard. "What about you?" Marcus's smile didn't reach his eyes. "I'll be right behind you." A burst of gunfire from below answered the unspoken question. Reyes was still holding them off, but her ammo wouldn't last forever. Marcus tensed, ready to move. On 3. 1, 2. Daniel never heard 3. A thunderous explosion rocked the dock below them, sending a fireball twisting into the night sky. The van. Reyes had blown it. "Go." Marcus shoved him forward. Daniel ran like his life depended on it, because it did. His shoes pounded against the weathered wood of the dock, each step sending jolts of pain through his injured shoulder. Halfway to the container, he heard the sharp crack of a rifle shot. Something tugged at his sleeve. Another shot whined past his ear. He didn't stop, didn't slow, until he crashed into the relative safety of the yellow container's shadow. Marcus wasn't behind him. Heart pounding, Daniel risked a look back. Marcus was pinned down near the staircase, trading fire with at least 3 shooters who had flanked their position. Even as Daniel watched, one of the attackers slumped to the ground, but 2 more appeared from between containers. Then he saw Reyes. She was moving toward Marcus, firing as she went, but something was wrong with her left arm. It hung limp at her side, dark with blood. Another explosion, smaller this time, sent up a cloud of smoke between the containers. Marcus used the distraction to sprint toward Daniel's position, bullets kicking up splinters in the dock boards at his heels. He made it halfway before his leg buckled. Daniel didn't see the shot that hit him, only the sudden bloom of red on his thigh. Marcus went down hard, rolling behind a stack of pallets just barely large enough to provide cover. Daniel's breath came in short, panicked gasps. He was unarmed, untrained, and completely out of his depth. But Marcus had saved his life twice now. He couldn't just leave him. Before he could talk himself out of it, Daniel was moving. He kept low, using the shadows and stacks of cargo as cover as he worked his way toward Marcus's position. The gunfire had lessened. Their pursuers were advancing cautiously now, perhaps thinking they had their prey cornered. Daniel reached Marcus just as the man was trying to stanch the flow of blood from his leg with a torn strip of his own shirt. His face was pale but set in determined lines. "You idiot," Marcus hissed. "I told you to stay put." Daniel ignored him, grabbing another strip of fabric to help bind the wound. Reyes is coming. We just need to hold on a little longer. Marcus's hand closed around Daniel's wrist with surprising strength. Listen to me. When she gets here, you go with her. No arguments. What about you? Marcus didn't answer. His attention had shifted to something over Daniel's shoulder. Following his gaze, Daniel saw them. At least 6 armed figures moving in coordinated sweeps through the container yard. They weren't the haphazard attackers from before. These were professionals. Companies calling in their A-team, Marcus muttered. He checked his weapon. Only a few rounds left. This changes things. Reyes appeared suddenly at Daniel's other side, her breathing ragged. Extractions compromised. New plan. She pressed a small device into Daniel's hand. Some kind of GPS tracker. There's a fishing boat 2 docks over. Captain's name is Ruiz. Show him this, and he'll get you out. Daniel stared at the device, then at Reyes. You're not coming? She exchanged a glance with Marcus that spoke volumes. We'll hold them off. You need to get to Cho. He's the only one who can end this. Marcus grabbed Daniel's collar, pulling him close enough to smell the gunpowder and blood. Find Cho. Get him to admit what he did. Record it, document it, whatever it takes. His eyes burned with intensity. That's the only way you live through this. The approaching footsteps grew louder. Reyes checked her weapon. Empty. She drew a pistol from her hip instead. Go. Now. Daniel hesitated, the weight of their sacrifice pressing down on him. These people, who owed him nothing, were willing to die for him. The realization shook him to his core. Marcus gave him one last shove toward the safety of the shadows. Go. Daniel went, his vision blurring with unshed tears. As he disappeared into the maze of containers, the first renewed bursts of gunfire told him Marcus and Reyes had made their stand. Somewhere in the night, a boat's horn sounded, his lifeline. But as Daniel ran toward it, one thought consumed him. He would find Edwin Cho and make him pay for all of this. The fishing boat's engine coughed to life as Daniel collapsed onto its deck, his lungs burning from the sprint across the docks. Captain Ruiz, a grizzled man with salt and pepper stubble and eyes that had seen too much, barely glanced at him before untying the lines. Stay down, Ruiz grunted, shoving Daniel behind a stack of crab traps as the boat pulled away from the dock. The night air carried the fading echoes of gunfire, each distant pop sending a fresh wave of guilt through Daniel's chest. He clutched the GPS device Reyes had given him, its screen casting a faint blue glow over his bloodstained hands. The coordinates led to a safe house, somewhere to regroup, somewhere to plan. But first, he had to survive the next hour. Ruiz guided the boat through the harbor's maze of buoys and channel markers, his gaze constantly flicking to the radar screen. We got company, he muttered after 10 tense minutes. Daniel peered over the traps. A sleek black speedboat cut through the water behind them, its running lights off. Even in the dark, he could see the silhouettes of armed men aboard. Ruiz didn't wait. He slammed the throttle forward, the fishing boat lurching as its aging engine screamed in protest. The sudden acceleration threw Daniel against the bulkhead, pain flaring in his injured shoulder. Hold on, Ruiz barked, wrenching the wheel hard to starboard. The boat heeled sharply, its hull groaning as it skimmed dangerously close to a rocky breakwater. The speedboat adjusted course, its engine whining as it closed the distance. A spotlight flicked on, blinding in its intensity, sweeping across the fishing boat's deck. Daniel ducked, his pulse hammering in his throat. They're going to board us. Ruiz's jaw tightened. He reached under the console and tossed Daniel a rusted flare gun. Last resort. The speedboat pulled alongside, close enough that Daniel could hear the shouted orders over the engine noise. A grappling hook arced through the air, its claws biting into the fishing boat's railing with a metallic clang. Ruiz reacted instantly. He grabbed a filleting knife from a nearby rack and severed the line with one practiced motion. The speedboat veered off, its occupants shouting in frustration. But they weren't giving up. A burst of automatic gunfire ripped across the deck, splintering wood and sending Daniel scrambling for cover. Ruiz cursed, spinning the wheel erratically to throw off their aim. Daniel's fingers trembled around the flare gun. He'd never fired one before, but the alternative was a bullet to the head. As the speedboat closed in again, he raised the weapon, aimed at the fuel tanks visible beneath its canopy, and pulled the trigger. The flare streaked across the water in a brilliant red arc and missed. It struck the speedboat's bow, erupting in a shower of sparks that sent the men aboard scrambling. The distraction was enough. Ruiz seized the moment, cutting the wheel hard and slamming the fishing boat into the speedboat's side. The impact threw Daniel to his knees. Metal shrieked as the two vessels ground together, the speedboat's hull buckling under the force. For one terrifying second, Daniel thought they would both go under. Then the fishing boat lurched free, its engine sputtering but still running. Behind them, the speedboat listed dangerously, its occupants too busy trying to keep it afloat to continue pursuit. Ruiz didn't slow down. He pushed the engine to its limits, putting as much distance between them and the harbor as possible. Only when the lights of the city had faded to a distant glow did he finally ease back on the throttle. Daniel exhaled, his body trembling with adrenaline. "You do this often?" Ruiz shot him a sidelong glance. "Not for people who miss." The GPS device beeped, its screen updating with new coordinates. A safe house, somewhere to regroup, somewhere to figure out how to find Edwin Cho. Daniel stared at the dark water ahead, his mind racing. Marcus and Reyes had bought him time. But for what? He was no operative, no fighter, just a man who'd unknowingly carried the keys to something far bigger than himself. And now, he was the only one left who could expose it. The boat cut through the waves, carrying him toward an uncertain future, and enemies who would stop at nothing to silence him for good. The fishing boat finally sputtered to a stop at a secluded dock, its hull scraping against the weathered wood. Daniel's legs nearly gave out as he stepped on solid ground, his body still vibrating with the echoes of gunfire and the roar of engines. Ruiz didn't say a word, just nodded once before casting off again, disappearing into the pre-dawn mist. The safe house was a small, unremarkable cabin tucked deep in the woods, its windows dark. Daniel approached cautiously, the GPS device still clenched in his hand. The door was unlocked. Inside, the air smelled of dust and old coffee. A single lamp flickered on, revealing a folded note on the table. Asterisk, Cho's private server farm. Coordinates attached. In this, asterisk. It was Reyes' handwriting. Daniel exhaled slowly, the weight of everything pressing down on him. Marcus and Reyes were gone. Ruiz had risked his life. And here he was, alive, but only because others had shielded him. He had no training, no plan. Just a name, Edwin Cho, and the knowledge that this man had turned him into a pawn in a game he never agreed to play. 3 days later, the server farm was hidden beneath a nondescript office building in the financial district. Daniel had spent every waking moment since the docks preparing, studying blueprints, watching security rotations, gathering every scrap of information he could. He wasn't a soldier, but he was smart. And right now, that was all he had. He slipped inside during a shift change, blending into the stream of tech workers with a stolen keycard. The elevator descended to the sublevels, where the real operation hummed behind locked doors. Cho was there. Daniel saw him through the glass of a secure server room, his former boss, impeccably dressed, speaking calmly into a headset. The same man who had handed him that briefcase with a smile. Something inside Daniel hardened. He waited until Cho was alone. Then he stepped inside. Cho's eyes widened in genuine shock. "Daniel? How? You set me up." Daniel's voice was low, steady. "You made me the fall guy for whatever this is." Cho recovered quickly, his surprise shifting into a cold, calculating expression. "You don't understand what's at stake here." "I understand enough." Daniel pulled out his phone, recording. "Confess." "Now." Cho laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Or what? You'll shoot me?" "You're not a killer, Daniel." "No," Daniel agreed. "But I'm done running." He pressed send on the phone. The recording, Cho's admission, the proof of the backdoor deals, the quantum keys, streamed to 3 major news outlets, 2 intelligence agencies, and every board member of their company. Cho's face drained of color. Outside, alarms began to blare. The fallout was swift. Cho was arrested within hours. The company collapsed under investigations. The news cycle exploded with stories of corporate espionage, shadow governments, and the ordinary man who had exposed it all. Daniel sat on a park bench weeks later, the morning sun warm on his face. He was free, but not unchanged. Marcus and Reyes were gone, but their sacrifice had given him this. A chance. A future. A woman sat beside him, Reyes, alive but bandaged, her sharp eyes scanning the area out of habit. "You did good," she said simply. Daniel looked at her. "You're alive." "Barely." She smirked. "Marcus too. Stubborn bastard." Relief hit Daniel like a wave. "Then why let me think?" "Had to sell it." She stood, adjusting her jacket. "Chose people had to believe you were alone, that you had nothing left to lose." Daniel exhaled, shaking his head. "And now?" "Now?" Reyes shrugged. "Up to you. Walk away or—" She left it hanging. An invitation. A choice. Daniel watched a group of kids laughing as they chased pigeons. The world kept turning. Life went on. He stood. "Let's talk." The end. If you enjoyed this gripping tale of betrayal and redemption, make sure to subscribe, like, and follow for more thrilling stories.